as far as the adult worm is concerned. Okay, the egg is quite large. Okay. So it is ovoid in shape, it is operculate, and it is immature when laid. Okay. Operculate, immature when laid, so that's the size, 140 to 180 by 63 to 90. So embryonisation therefore occurs in water. So this is how the egg looks like. It's quite large. You do not mistake it from any other egg. Right? Although in the laboratory, we will accept fasciola egg and fasciolopsis egg. It's very difficult to differentiate the two. Although to the trained eye, they'll be able to know because fasciolopsis is a little bit smaller if you compare it with fasciola egg. So it is operculated, that's the operculum, and then as we had mentioned, it is immature when laid, and therefore when it gets into water, that's when embryonisation occurs. Okay? Now, the intermediate hosts, the first intermediate host is a snail belonging to the genus Lemniae. So in the Philippines, in particular, we have Lemniae philippinensis and Lemniae auricularia rubiginosa. So these are the specific species that we have here in the Philippines. Okay. That's how the snail looks like. And the second intermediate host were the Cercaria incistes, are water vegetations. Okay. So Ipomea obscura, that's the specific name of kangkong. And then Nasturtium officinale, so watercress. That's kangkong, that's watercress. So they can be found anywhere, in any part of the plant. Okay. And then, as far as the life cycle is concerned, so we know that the infective stage is the metacercaria that is encysted, right, or found in water vegetation, and therefore the mode of infection is ingestion, right? And then exgestation occur in the duodenum, releasing the immature worm. And as we know, the adult worm inhabits the bile ducts of the liver. So what is the pathway that is taken by the parasite? From the intestinal, from the duodenum, where exgestation occurs. How?
Blood hematogenous. Hematogenous.
How?
Hematogenous pa.
How does a parasite reach the bile duct, where they will develop into an adult worm?
Circulation.
They will?
Circulation.
Blood circulation? Common bile duct? How do you think? Definitely it's going to penetrate the wall of the intestine, right? And then it goes to the...
penetration.
It goes into the abdominal cavity and penetrates the liver through the Gleason's capsule. So it traverses through the parenchyma of the liver until it finds its way into the bile duct. Okay, so within the bile duct, they develop into an adult worm. They're self-fertilized, okay, and then deposit eggs. And the eggs find its way into the feces via the common bile duct. Can you picture the life cycle? So as we had mentioned, the eggs that are laid are immature, and therefore when they get into contact with water, then the egg becomes embryonated. And what is inside the egg when it is embryonated? Is the metasidium, right? So metasidium is released, so hatching of the egg occurs in water. Metasidium will penetrate the fleshy portion of the snail. That's the first intermediate host belonging to Lemniae. And then develops into sporocyst, Rhidia, and then Cercaria. Can you classify the Cercaria? Can you classify the Cercaria?
Yes.
Lofo.
Huh?
Lophocercus.
Long-fluted tail, what do we call it?
Lophocercus.
Lophocercus. Okay, Lophocercus. And then the Cercaria is released from the snail host and then swim and find its way into water vegetation, where they will insist, right, and becomes metacercaria. And then the cycle is repeated. All right? Now, there are two phases of the infection. We have the acute and the chronic. So acute refers to the invasive form. So when the parasite migrates from the intestine until it reaches the liver, So they produce traumatic and necrotic lesions. Okay, and there's a triad of clinical manifestations with high fever, hepatomegaly, and marked eosinophilia. The chronic or the latent phase of the infection generally asymptomatic, and this corresponds to the time when the parasite has reached the bile duct and developed into adult worms. However, the adult worms, because of its size, right, it causes obstruction, inflammation, and eventually fibrosis of the bile duct. Okay. Lifespan of the adult worm is 9 to 13 years. Okay, so ectopic sites because of the migration of the worm, so they can reach the lungs, the subcutaneous tissue, the brain, the organ. And there is a condition which we call as halzone. It's also referred to as marara, depending on which country this is found. It is also referred to as pharyngeal fascioliasis. Okay. So this is brought about by ingestion of infected liver of sheep and goats that are eaten raw. Okay. Infected. Okay. So the adult worm is temporarily lodged in the pharyngeal mucosa. Adult worms, huh? This is not the infective stage, correct? Because the infective stage is your metacercaria. So this time, the adult worms will find its way into the pharyngeal area, and this, of course, will incite an inflammatory process. So there's an edematous congestion of the soft palate, the pharynx, the larynx, the nasal fossae, and even the eustachian tube. So this can be manifested with dyspnea, dysphagia, deafness, and occasional asphyxiation. So this is a sample. This is the adult worm that is found in the posterior pharyngeal wall. That's it. Here, there's another one here. Can you imagine it? The worm is quite large, right? And if it is lodged in that area, certainly it's going to cause some obstruction, right? Okay. Okay, so how do we make a diagnosis of fascioliasis? Of course, we have to recover the characteristic egg from the feces, or it can be through duodenal or biliary tract drainage. There is a condition which we call as false fascioliasis. And this is brought about by the passage of eggs in the feces, and this is due to the ingestion of infected livers. So probably you have the adult worms there, and then laying down eggs, and then the eggs are found in parts of the liver. And then these are the ones that are passed out in the feces. So it's not a true infection, right? Okay, it's not a true infection, meaning the life cycle has not been accomplished, as far as the human infection is concerned. Serologic diagnosis may be helpful, so ELISA and immunoblotting, and then sonography and CT scan may also help. Okay. That's the drug for treatment, so butylenol and triclabendazole, but praziquantel is probably effective, so it has not been proven to be fully effective as far as treatment of fascioliasis is concerned. Okay. So these are the preventive and control measures. Okay, thorough washing and cooking of vegetables. Ang problema lang kay kung gusto ka mga fresh vegetables, yun ang problema natin. Okay, boiling of water, elimination of the snail host, and killing of the parasites in the reservoir host by chemotherapy. The second type, the second species, we have the giganticum. So this is the one that is more common in the Philippines because it is the one that is infecting cattle and water buffaloes. Karabaw na lang, ang karabaw din sa tuan. No? So Fasciola gigantica na siya. Now this one differs from hepatica based on the following. Okay, the adult worm is larger, but it is more lanceolate, meaning the body is more elongate. Okay? Ang hepatica kasi kay may mara siya leaf-like in appearance. And then the cephalic cone is less developed, although it is present, but it is not that prominent if you compare it with hepatica. It has a larger ventral sucker. It has a more branched intestinal ceca. The branches of the ovary are longer and more numerous. Okay. More anterior position of the testis. It has a larger egg, although it's very difficult to distinguish the two. And then the worms, the adult Fasciola gigantica, may be found in cystic masses in the subcutaneous or muscles of the abdominal or chest wall, and they may also cause liver abscess. Okay. So this schematic, this is Fasciola hepatica, this is gigantica. Okay, and then the egg, very difficult to differentiate. Okay. So this is Fasciola hepatica.
More hydrophobic.
This is Fasciola gigantica.
Decrease ang iyahakuan. Plasma esterase and hepatic enzymes.
This is Fasciola hepatica,
Hepatic
and that
enzyme
is
of
Fasciola gigantica. So it's larger, and the body is more elongate if you compare it with hepatica. Okay, let's go to the Clonarchus opistorchis group.
Only answer kanina.
See?
Embryonated.
Okay,
Embryonated.
so
Ay,
this one is
infective stage
somebody.
sa-
The common name of Clonarchus sinensis is Chinese liver fluke. So you will be able to know the geographical distributions, primarily found in China, Korea, Japan, and Vietnam.
Chinito.
And then the Opistorchis group, okay, the common name is cat liver fluke or civet liver fluke, okay. And this, yes, the Philoneus is found in Europe, part of, and then Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and India. Whereas the Opistorchis viverini is found in Thailand, Laos, and Malaysia. So the Clonarchus adult worm is described as, the body is still flat, and it is spatulate. It has an aspinous integument of the size 10 to 25 by 3 to 5 millimeters. So it's a medium-sized trematode. So the characteristic features of the adult Clonarchus, that's a large, deeply branched testis. Large, deeply branched testis, and then the vitellaria are delicate, granular aggregates that are usually seen in the lateral fields in the middle part of the body, middle third of the part of the body, meaning the vitellaria does not occupy the entire lateral fields. Okay. So this is schematic. Intestinal ceca is branched or unbranched?
Unbranched.
Intestinal ceca is branched or unbranched?
Unbranched.
It has an unbranched
Fasciola
intestinal
naman, di ba?
ceca. And look at the testis. Okay.
Okay.
Highly branched. And then the vitellaria, as we have mentioned, looks like granular, right? And it is found only in the middle third of the body of the adult worm. Okay? So these are stained adult worms. Okay, so this is the testis, very prominent. Right? This one, in this picture, you'll be able to see the unbranched intestinal ceca. Okay? And then you have the pair of dendritic testes. And of course, this one,
Uterus daw.
this one is identified as the coiled uterus that is filled up with
Yung
eggs.
labas ko
Okay.
tulog, ano mga testis daw. Ovary akong i-honest.
Now, what about the opistorchis? So practically the same size. However, look, the difference is in the
Kilid ng
testis.
banana.
Because the testis for opistorchis is lobed. Okay? And the vitellaria also consists of transversely compressed follicles, and it is also found in the middle third of the body
Duha
of
na
the adult
magka-testis, so
worm.
di na siya.
So if we try to look at this one, this is Opistorchis philoneus, and this is Opistorchis viverini. Okay. So intestinal ceca, very clear, right? It's unbranched. Okay, and then if you go into the testis is deeply lobed. Okay, and then this one is significant, no? If you try to differentiate it with Clonarchus. And then coiled uterus will fill up with eggs, and then this one is the transversely compressed follicles of your vitelline glands that again occupies only the middle third of the body of the adult worm. Okay,
There is a terminity for anesthetic agents is great.
identify.
So great, ignore her.
Ang AHI. Ano lang? Storkis.
Hindi sila katugon kahit kung
Gigantica.
A is
Turkish.
Opistarchus villaneus. B is Opistarchus viverini, and C is Clonarchus sinensis. Okay? So, very clear ang difference, no, sa testis. And then, you may be able to make a difference as far as the vitellaria is concerned. But what is more important is that the vitellaria occupies only the middle third of the body of the adult worm. Okay. Now, what about the eggs? Oh, this one. The eggs are small. They're operculated, and they're fully embryonated when laid. That is true for both Clonarchus and Opistarchus. Okay, so there's a distinct convex operculum that fits into a thickened rim of the eggshell. Okay, and characteristically at the posterior end of the shell, there is a small protuberance, although you may not be able to see it all of the times. But it is a significant structure to differentiate the egg of this group of parasites with another group of parasites in the intestinal tract, which also looks the same. Okay. That's the size. It's a small one. Very small one. Okay? That's how it looks like. This is the operculum. That's the posterior protuberance. It's fully embryonated when laid. Okay. Another one. It's a small egg. And it is very difficult to differentiate between the two species. So we are going to accept if you are going to identify it as Clonarchus egg or Opistarchus egg. Okay. Let's go to the snails. Okay, the snail host. So Opistarchus and Clonarchus. So the Clonarchus, these are the different species of the snail hosts for Clonarchus. Okay. And then the Opistarchus is Bithynia. By the way, we don't have these parasites here in the Philippines. Maybe sometimes there are imported cases because this is very common in neighboring countries, no? Neighboring Asian countries. Particularly Thailand. So, lahat ay nag-Opistarchus dito. Okay. The second intermediate host, if you still remember, are freshwater fish belonging to the Cyprinidae family. Okay, that is where your Cercaria will insist, as I mentioned, in any part of the fish, actually. So these are freshwater fish belonging to the Cyprinidae family. Okay, so let's go to the life cycle. So again, the mode of infection is ingestion of Metacercaria that is present in the freshwater fish. Okay, so kaniyang fish kay daghang kaon ning kinilaw, no? Kinilaw. Okay, and then existation again occurs in the duodenum. Okay, and then the immature worm is released and then reach its area of habitat. Asa ganito ang habitat, ani?
Freshwater.
Bile duct pa rin, di ba? Ng liver. Paano makarating doon? Again,
Habitat mo nga, di ba?
ganun din, mag-penetrate sa wall. Ano?
Meron din po na.
Paano? How? Actually, the immature worm enters the common bile duct and goes through or against the flow of the bile until it reaches the more or less the distal portion of the bile ducts. So it will go against the flow of the bile. So and then develop again into adult worms. Adult worms lay fully embryonated egg, and then eggs again find its way into the intestinal canal via the common bile duct. Now, the difference this time is the fully embryonated egg is ingested by the snail host and hatching occurs within the intestine of the snail host. So merasidium is released in the intestine of the snail host, and then the snail, the larva develops, Mericidium again to sporocyst, and then sporocyst 3dia formation, and then Cercaria. Cercaria find its way into water and then swim and find its way into the second intermediate host, which is your freshwater fish. Okay? Can you classify the Cercaria?
Low four.
Classify the Cercaria.
Low four.
Clonarchis is?
Aye.
Clonarchis is? Lophocercus. Opisthercus is? Lophocercus. Okay. So that's it. So this is the egg in the stool sample. It's really a very small one. Okay? Ano siya ang, so this is the freshwater fish, okay, which serves as the second intermediate host. Ano siya?
Benignit.
Kinilaw. Ano yung kinilaw? Particular in endemic areas, no? Wala man actually wala ni siya sa Bangkok is a city, right? And then the areas is most of the time found in the northeastern part of Thailand. That's where a lot of Opisthercus cases in that country. It's brought about by the dietary habit of the population. Kasi maganahan na sila delicacy that they prepare the fish fresh niya. Saguran og daghan kayong mga chili powder something. So they love to eat those food. So these are the fish. These are the Metacercaria that is present in the infected fish. Okay. Now, the development, so obviously the development of the parasite in the bile duct will provoke an intense inflammatory and proliferative changes in the biliary epithelium. And there's also a marked proliferation of periductal connective tissue and then fibrosis, periductal fibrosis. So these are samples. This is section of the periportal areas, and then you are able to see the adult worms. And this one will show us, right, that there's hyperplasia of the wall of the bile duct. Alright. So light infections are generally asymptomatic, but moderate parasite load, like you have about 100 to 1,000 flukes, okay, will be responsible for, or this one will now cause the manifestations of fever, diarrhea, anorexia, liver enlargement, and jaundice. In heavy worm burden, like up to 25,000 flukes, okay, can cause acute pain in the right upper quadrant, okay, and chronic complications will include cholangitis, stone formation, cholelithiasis, okay, cholecystitis, hepatitis, pancreatitis, and the worst complication that we have is, yes, they can cause transformation of your bile epithelium, bile duct epithelium to malignant ones. So you have cholangiocarcinoma. So in repeated infections, okay, repeated chronic infections, so eventually the metaplasia there can result to dysplasia until you'll have an adenocarcinoma. So adenocarcinoma of the bile ducts and gallbladder. So these are the carcinogenic potentials of the parasite. One, they can initiate transformation of the bile duct epithelium. And at the same time, there's an endogenous formation of N-nitroso compound, which can be a carcinogen. And then macrophages and other inflammatory cells also secrete nitric oxide. So these will contribute to the toxicity or the trauma that is brought about until you have transformation of the cell to malignant one. So this is actually one of the complications that we have. So very common in areas where Opistherchiasis is present. Even Clonarchiasis, but Clonarchiasis is more common in China. So how do we make a diagnosis? So detection of the typical egg in the stools, okay? And then cholangiography, so you'll be able to see the filling defect, the one that is pointed by the arrow. So you have a filling defect when you introduce a dye, right? And then there are filling defects, and that will imply that you have the parasite in that area. Okay. So you have to introduce a dye, for you to be able to see the traces or the pathway of the bile duct. Okay. The treatment of choice is praziquantel, or a combination of albendazole and praziquantel has also been shown to be effective, in eradication of the parasite. So stool exam and treatment of positive cases, health education, and of course, a proper disposal of human wastes. Okay, so that's the end of the hepatic flukes. We will now proceed to
So kedua na ni.
the intestinal
So, lagi
flukes.
tingog lagi ni Jeng.